We are speaking with the one and only Ross Jennings, of course, of the band Haken. The new album, A Shadow of My Future Self, is out November 19th. I've had a chance to hear it, and it's phenomenal. So, as we say here in Montreal, bonjour, Ross. How are you?
Bonjour. Phenomenal. That's a great review, actually. That's probably the
Yeah.
best review I've had so far on
Well, there you
this.
go. We'll just stop it there.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to talk to
We'll,
you.
we'll make this an Instagram post, just real quick. But talk to me about this. You know, I always find it interesting when a band member steps out of the band to do a solo project. So the first question is, what was the motivation? Is it just songs that you wanted to put out and they weren't Haken songs, or talk to me about wanting to step out and do this?
Yeah, obviously, I'm very cautious and wary of calling this a lockdown album, but essentially, that's that's what provoked this, to happen. And so, yeah, here we were. We've cancelled tours and a lot of time on our hand. I just didn't want to stop. I had this momentum going, so straight away, as soon as I could, I was hooking up some other musicians and writing these demos on my own and kind of getting this all the pieces of the puzzle in place. But essentially, what you picked up on there was genre-wise. These are songs that stem from me just sitting around on my own with my guitar and coming up with singer-songwriter style pieces
Yeah.
of music, um, which are a lot more personal to me. And they had really no place in Haken or Novena, which is another project I'm involved with.
Right.
And it just felt right to put these collection of songs together and produce this in this way. It was not really an ego thing at all. It was really just an opportunity and an itch I've been wanting to scratch for some time.
When you're writing for yourself and not for the band, how do you sort of decide which song goes in the Ross pile and which song goes in the band pile? I mean, is it the lyrical content that says, "Whoops, no, this can't be for the band. This is too personal. It has to be for Ross," or is there some other kind of measure where you just go, "Nope, that goes to pile A. This one's pile B."
Well, no, it's not really like that because with Haken, for example, it's a bit more collaborative and collective in the songwriting stage. So, we'd meet up, and actually, it would start with just simple kind of grooves and drum loops or a particular riff, maybe, which we'll play in a circle and trying to evolve a song together, using with that template. But um, I think if I'm coming up with some songs from home on my own, there might be like a chorus idea which I'll try and use in a Haken song because there'll be some nice lyrical passage. I'm not really that protective over that because essentially, if it works, then I'll put that line I've come up with in a Haken song if it works and everyone agrees to it. And sometimes that's happened. There is an example of this on "The Shadow of My Future Self." It's the song. Which one did I use now? I'm trying to think. There's a piece of music. There's a chorus that I used on one of the tracks, and I tried to use it on prosthetic, and in the end, it wasn't really gelling. So, and the other guy said, "No, this isn't working. We've got a better idea. Let's try this chorus." And we ended up going with the alternate choice. So yeah, I kept that back and I've used it on this record now, and it works a lot better in the context. I'll have to remember which course that was. I've changed it.
You'll figure it out. Now the album is self-produced. I'm assuming in this case it's because it's, like you said, a lockdown album and it was hard to get another producer. But is that something that you ascribe to, is self-producing rather than having outside ears? Because I've always felt that having outside ears is important to sort of say, "Ooh, this works. This doesn't work. Try this. Try that." Talk to me about the sort of the self-producing this album, given the
Yeah, I
context.
mean, it's obviously labeled as self-producing, and I had the final say on a lot of on everything. However, I did have the ears of the participating musicians, and the gentleman who mixed my album, Karim Sino, had a lot to do with the overall sound. In he would make suggestions, send me files. Hey, I think the guitars should sound this way, and I would weigh it up and make that decision. So yeah, I had some external input also. So yeah, it was just essentially the producer's role is the last man standing, making the final decisions on the whole thing. But yeah, I wasn't completely alone in the process, which I'm thankful for.
So semi self-produced.
Semi self-produced, you could say. Yeah.
That's a good credit.
I still like the collaborative process, even though it is a solo album, and bouncing the ideas off the musicians, because they're going to bring to the table things that I might not have thought of, and in many cases that did happen, and I can only count that as a blessing, and whilst it might look like I'm taking credit for every single note and decision, there's still somewhat of a collaborative process.
Well, as we said, it's semi self-produced, so it's our new term we're inventing. Let me just quickly, before we get back to the album, quickly talk about the Virus album that you put out last year.
Yeah.
It was postponed, and then it was postponed, and then it was postponed, and then it was postponed again, and then it came out. Talk to me about putting out an album in that context where you you can't go tour it. It's just going to be out there. Was it a difficult decision to say, okay, let's just throw it out there, and when we get to tour, we tour? Or was there a debate with the band that just said, hey, you know what? Let's just hold this until we can go support it properly. Talk to me about that whole process, and then finally just getting it out.
Yeah, that was pretty painful to watch that being delayed, and we were kind of at the mercy of production schedules as well at that time. And this was right in the heart of the I'm talking about physical production, by the way, like vinyls and CDs and things like that, and also distribution, because that was very limited at that time. So we were at the mercy of all that going on, and yeah, we had a lot of people saying, hey, just throw it out digitally, and let us listen to it. But there are procedures and protocols at play, which I'm glad we made that decision in the end, because it helped us get certain chart positions and things like this. So I think that was the right call to make in the end.
Yeah, it was. Was the album originally going to be called Virus, or was it part of the whole COVID thing? You just went, forget it.
Oh no, you know the answer to this by now, surely. No, this was a Vector Virus, was the planned double album, as you were, if you like. Yeah. Back in 2018 when we were putting this stuff together. So yeah, it was always the plan to call it Virus, and it just happened to be a very, very profound coincidence.
Apropos, progressive music. In Canada, of course, we've had Rush and we've had a bunch of others, and we've always supported these progressive bands that come over. When you're going into the business and you want to put a band together, how do you sort of, I don't want to say choose to go into progressive, but a lot of us chase the dollar, and they chase the pop song, and they chase and progressive is one, it's not on the charts as much. It's a bit more of a difficult thing to sort of build a future in. But how did you sort of get into the progressive thing? Is it just you love it so much, or?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of make peace with the fact that it's not going to be well, it depends what you're doing it for, really. If you're doing it for the art of making music and being a creative person, and I guess it's quite kind of a self-indulgent approach to the industry. Then progressive music is for you. I've always seen it as music for musicians, really, because we're always pushing boundaries of what our capabilities are on our instruments, and how complicated we can make certain songs and sections of songs, and it's really like we approach it as almost athletes trying to improve our game each time we put out a piece of music or perform at a concert. So yeah, you got to, if you're starting out now and you are hoping to be a prog musician, then you've really got to make peace with that, and it shouldn't necessarily be about the money.
But you do have charts. You do have chart success. I mean, your albums are top 20, top 40, at least in Europe.
We've been at it a while though, and I think in the beginning it was a bit of a struggle, and that's kind of prompted us to write music like The Mountain, because all that album was just about, oh, we're putting in all this effort and it's just such a graft and not really getting much back from it, and this, and it ends with quite a negative note. I just want to be somebody, and that's a lot of people go into this business just to be. I mean, I heard this is Paul McCartney saying this on the recent documentary, but everyone just wants to be accepted, and that's all. A lot of people are trying to do is be accepted as musicians. But hey, it's got to be fun, and if it stops being fun, then stop doing it.
So what keeps it fun then? Is it the creative pursuit that keeps it fun? Is it the fans showing up that keeps it fun? And have you had those moments where you've just said, like just before The Mountain in 2013, where you just say, this ain't working. We got to go work at I got to go ride a cab and be an Uber driver. I mean, do you get to that point where you just go, it's enough?
It's all of the above, to be honest. Yeah, there is always a creative drive from me personally. Like I'm addicted to it. I can't stop doing it and writing and wanting to make the next album already, and then there is that element of the performance, and I'm missing it so much right now. I can't tell you.
Right.
And yeah, we've got all these tours planned for next year, and really just like
fingers crossed
that it's all going to go to plan. But yeah, that's it's been hard, and I've been just trying to keep the studio stuff busy, just to make the most of it. And what's probably not common knowledge is that the majority of us in the band are not full-time musicians, or maybe we technically we are. There's a lot of us teaching on the side. I'm a photographer on the side, so I'm not necessarily paying my bills with Haken. And I'm hoping to change that, but yeah, even to this day I'm still doing jobs on the side. And
well, let me ask you about that, because I didn't know about that angle. But you're a photographer on the side, so first of all, what does that mean? Are you doing like taking a picture of a plate of spaghetti and it goes into restaurant menus, or are you doing model shoots? Like, because it obviously means different things to different people. So what does that mean you're doing photography?
It's mixed, and a lot of the bread and butter stuff is kind of family portraits and things like this, and just getting the odd jobs at schools and doing really kind of grounding stuff. Keeps me humble. But also events and weddings and things like this.
Okay, so it's straightforward stuff. It's not an artistic pursuit in the sense where you're doing here's the mountaintop with the light coming over the. I mean, we're not doing that.
I could do that, and I'd love to do that, but it's just too risky financially to have two careers. They're playing that game, and it was really a case of bottom line, and
which is perfectly fair. I mean,
got a mouth to feed and a roof to put on, over the heads.
Is there an element of creativity though in the photography?
Yeah, of course. And that's perfectly fine with me, because that keeps it interesting as well.
Right. So then how do you balance the two? Because you said you have a mouth to feed and a roof to put over people's head, which we all do. Can you then afford to go on tour for 6 months and just say, not doing weddings this summer? Like, how do you sort of come to grips with those two things?
That's just all about planning.
Okay.
Really, and having keeping on top of the diary and the finances.
Which is important. quickly talk to me about the album once again. Is this something that you enjoy doing the process? I mean, you're sitting in lockdown. You're trying not to go crazy like most of us did, just sitting there staring at the wall. Did it provide a certain relief to be able to express yourself and have something to say rather than just stare at the TV and go, oh, I don't want to see this
Absolutely,
guy. Brexit
absolutely,
again? No more Brexit. I don't want to hear about Brexit. Shut up.
absolutely. Yeah, I had this routine where I would take the opportunity we had. We're allowed to go out for one time for some exercise, so I made the most of that.
You can go out
Doing
into the
something,
yard. I know. Great.
and I'd come home, have some lunch, and just crack on with writing. And I had lots to say. I've it's been it wasn't necessarily regarding the global situation, but there were some personal things I was overcoming and trying to get that all processed and onto record as well. So that stuff sort of seeped into the Virus album, but not fully. And so I wanted to put the heart on the sleeve on this one and make it really personal and work through that stuff almost like therapeutically.
Yeah.
And there you go. I mean, these not to
Do
give
you
too
think?
much detail away, but read into the lyrics and make of it what you will. And hopefully, some of it's quite relatable.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think the listener who's going to hear this will sense it as therapeutic as well, and just listen to what you're saying and say, "Yeah, I can relate to that. This is my therapy. I don't need a fancy $100 an hour guy. I
I
got
hope so,
Ross."
because largely for me, it was all about reconciliation, and there's a lot about relationships,
Right.
and also self-caring as well. So yeah, there's a mixed bag of issues, but yeah, hopefully someone can take something from these songs, and if not, they're pretty catchy songs.
Yeah,
They'll
that's
be
what I thought.
enjoyable to listen to on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that sense when I listened to it. Let me ask you this. I have always been in the camp that a song should be, 3 minutes long, get to the chorus, don't bore us. And of course, Phoenix is 11 and a half, Grounded is 8. And prog bands, for the most part, love these really long songs. You listen to early UFO and they have a song that's 26 minutes long. Um, Talk to me about those long songs and I don't know, shouldn't songs be 3 minutes, get to the chorus, don't bore us?
Yeah, an album should be 35 minutes and
Like the good
not
old
long.
days,
Yeah.
right?
But I decided to, well, let me be honest
Yeah.
here and say that I initially set out to write some sort of country rock album,
Oh, wow.
and because I'm a big fan. But it became evident very quickly that it wasn't really working. It wasn't. I didn't think it would please fans of my voice necessarily, and I think I just needed to, also it wasn't pleasing it wasn't fulfilling my own tastes in a way. I need a lot more meat on the bone when it comes
Yeah.
to listening to records, and so I decided to make that choice and expand, mix up the genres a little bit, and include some of these longer songs because I know a lot of fans of Haken will enjoy that element too. So
Yeah.
hopefully overall, even though it's a very long album,
Yeah.
there's
14 tracks.
a nice balance of don't bore us, get to the chorus, and also some stuff, something to get your teeth into also. Yeah.
Now, it's funny. So you said you wanted to maybe make a country record. Is that something that you aspire to and maybe now just wasn't the time? I mean, do you want to get down to a honky tonk at some point and just punch it out like Keith Urban?
Yeah, well, I'd love to have Keith Urban's money. Yeah, sure.
You and me both.
um,
But that's interesting because
this is the
I've
thing.
never heard Phil Collins say, "Hey, I want," or Peter Gabriel say, "Man, I'd love to do a country song." But that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I enjoy that stuff. I mean, I listen to a lot of the Zach Brown band. I don't know if you're aware of
Oh,
these guys: Brad Paisley,
yep.
Darius Rucker, Lady Antebellum. The big hitters, really.
Yeah.
Garth Brooks and
Mm-hmm.
Jim McGraw. They're all kind of on my radar and playlists now and again. Chris Stapleton, like huge fan of his voice. He's doing so great at the moment. And in a sense, I do aspire to that, but
Wow.
yeah, when I tried it, it just didn't feel too genuine. So I think overall, I just keep it as something just I enjoy listening to, really. But you might hear some influences seep in, like there's a dobro, a lap steel guitar on the opening track actually
Yeah.
of the record, and that was kind of directly in, and even the words we can't unsay track. Initially, the bare bones of that was a country song I was writing, and that we just evolved that. I just evolved that sonically to incorporate more keyboards and a bit more of an 80s feel. But
Just real
yeah,
quick,
those were the foundations for starting this record for sure.
as a
And
Canadian,
plenty of country songs went in the bin as well because they were just sounding too corny, and they just sounded like every other pop country song that's on the radio in America at the moment.
hey, pop country is modern country is a big business. As a Canadian, are you a fan of Shania Twain? Then you have to be a fan of Shania Twain.
Shania Twain rocks, yeah. I have her greatest hits. I don't own all her records.
Well, you only need the greatest hits, but
Yeah.
she rocks. As long as you get to hear Mutt's production, you're good to go. Um, so that sort of catches me off guard that you mentioned all those country artists. In terms of the prog world, then who? Because I'm staring at a Genesis album right here. Um, who were sort of your prog guys then? Do you sit around and listen to Peter Gabriel and Genesis, or are you more modern, or how do you
Yeah,
sort of how'd you get
I
into
mix
it?
it. I mix it up. Yeah, I still enjoy. I mean, I bought another live Yes album and their new record as well
Which
today.
is quite good.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah, needs obviously time to soak in, but yeah, definitely. I'm still rocking the oldies, and on the flip side of that, I'm trying to keep on the pulse
Right.
with new bands as well. So, and obviously, I've made some contacts in the business, so I'm checking out their records and. But also, heavy metal has always been a part of my makeup as well, and I've been enjoying the recent Spirit Box album and Sleep Token. Check them out; they're really good.
Yep.
Um,
I listen. I've been on a Metallica deep dive recently, so
right,
love my metal.
that's the other thing I picked up was the Blacklist record. Which is all these artists
Yeah,
covering the Black album.
yeah. It's
It was really interesting. There's a few really good ones on there, and a few okay, interesting take.
yeah. You know what? I'll be honest. I the Miley Cyrus song is good, and maybe the guy from Depeche Mode is good, but the rest of it is to me very cringeworthy. I mean, I'm listening to it going,
it,
who
it's
came up with this and
it's
why?
difficult. It's difficult to you can't unhear the original, and the originals are so good. Yeah, it's hard.
But I also
I,
think it's the
I just see
fan
it as
base.
a tribute, and that's a beautiful thing, really.
Yeah.
If anyone in the future put together a record like that full of Haken tracks, I'd be so honored.
Yeah, I get it, but and not that we want to talk Metallica all day, but I think it's the wrong fan base. I think if you're a Madonna fan or a Lady Gaga fan and a project comes out like this where everybody's doing it, they go, "Oh my God, wow!" And I think a Metallica fan like me just wants to hear Metallica. We don't want to hear some weirdo doing some weirdo
Maybe.
version. So I don't know. I think if I'm a Lady Gaga fan and you have Lady Gaga's Blacklist, people are like, "Oh wow, it's really
Yeah,
cool."
cool. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't think Just last thing on Haken then. When you're making albums, do you are you very conscious about moving progressive music forward and saying something new, or are you more of the sort where you say it comes from a very steep tradition? I want to stay in that tradition. We want to, we want to be, the definition of prog? How do you approach records? You want to be modern or you want to be traditional?
I think it's impossible to avoid having some sort of influence, or even if you think you're coming up with something that's new, so much recorded history and there's bound to be something that reminds you of that. Oh, that, even if it's just, oh, that chord progression sounds like that King Crimson song, or that sounds like something I've heard on this track, and it's always going to be there. So I'm not saying that we'll give up trying to breach those boundaries and come up with something new. We're always trying to push our own abilities as musicians and songwriters and inject something new into the genre, I'd say. But yeah, I couldn't tell you what the next kind of actual new genre is going to sound like, because it's I mean, it's not going to be with guitars and drums and bass, that's for sure, because it's just so much has come before.
Right. So it's fair to say that it's not contrived. You do what you do, and you hope for the best.
Yeah, and we tip our hats to our heroes and our forefathers that have come before us and paved the way. And even I'm noticing there's bands coming out now that are inspired by Haken, so that's good. That's a great thing. Yeah. That's really humbling. It's really humbling to be part of that, lineage, if you like.
Actually, here I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question. As I look through your chart positions, it is very steeped in European. It's European. I mean, the European. You're on the Swiss charts and all that. Has it been difficult to get over to North America?
I mean, our first visit to North America was with our second album, so that was quite early on. We were invited to perform the Prog Power USA Festival in Atlanta.
Yeah,
went on the day the Visions album came out, actually. So, and I think our US fan base is, it's a large country, and Canada's a large country, so there are perhaps not relatively per square mile or whatever you want to kilometer. There's obviously big gaps, but there's quite a big fan base, I would say, out there. It's just large. It's just spread out.
Yeah, it's hard to get to efficiently, but indeed, Quebec has always been very big on prog. Quebec is a huge prog market.
We've obviously enjoyed performing in Toronto and then the French Quarter, and we haven't really ventured elsewhere in Canada. I don't know. I mean, where else bands tour in Canada other than these places? But
Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. That's pretty much
right. Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But hey, yeah,
that's cool, and we love coming over there. It's always a great, gracious, and uplifting crowd whenever we play there. So it's long may it continue.
Well, yeah, keep coming. And A Shadow of My Future Self is out November 19th. And as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Great pleasure. And thank you for coming on early.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening. And hope everyone checks out the new record.
Yeah, I think they should. I put it on and I was, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised because that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I was expecting like a very prog, and it was very accessible and it was great. It was great.
Yeah, I figured if I was going to make another prog metal album, I might as well just do it with Haken.
Well, yeah.
So it had to be different. It had to be something unique. It sets itself apart.
Yeah. And it does. It's great. Thank you, sir. Merci.
Thanks so much.
Perfect.